This interview is brought to you by people just like you. This first launch on Patreon and to YouTube members, so a big thanks to them for backing. If you would like to do so, you can go to patreon.com/safestateplus or become a member here on YouTube. Well, it is a very early morning here in the Ligeri household. It is 5:17, but I am up early because I am very excited to talk about Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. Toby is joining me today. Toby, thank you for making the time.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for waking up that early. I couldn't do that.
I have kids, so I have some
Oh.
early alarm clocks already. They usually have me up in about an hour anyway, so it's not too much different.
That's next on my bucket list. Releasing 2 big games and now family planning.
Yeah. So it's the morning of February 21st. The last number I saw, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 had sold 2 million.
Exactly.
Is that where you're at today still? Or are you still growing?
I think we
faster than
are.
ever?
So the good news generally is that the hype so far, or the sales and the views on Twitch and whatnot, that they're all more or less stable. So all of them are high. The sales are still very good. The people are still jumping on it. Word to word, kind of mouth to mouth works really fine. So people are playing it, seeing that other people, like friends or whatnot, are playing. So they're jumping on the bandwagon. We are right now, I guess, somewhere like 2.1, maybe even further, 2.2 or so. It's just a guesstimate. But as I said, I was, uh, the thing is, 2 million was something we achieved with KCD1 after 1 year, and having this in just under 14 days is a huge achievement for the studio. And also, in all honesty, no one. Well, we kind of expected to have a good game. Obviously, we are working on something which we trusted in, but no one, not even the publisher, expected the game to be that successful across all platforms.
Yeah, I'm not too terribly far into the game, but I'm taking my time enjoying it and dying a lot as I try to do things I'm probably not supposed to be doing that early on. The game is definitely, it's just different pacing wise, I think. So when people ask me, oh, should I play Kingdom Come Deliverance 2? I'm like, it's slower paced than you might expect. The opening's pretty exciting, and there's a lot of action in the opening, but it sort of slows down after that, and you have to learn how to be a filthy peasant, so to speak. And I'm curious, how internally do you land on that sort of slow burn towards becoming a more powerful character as the main protagonist in the game?
Honestly, I heard that I actually heard it several times. People saying, also like on YouTube reviews and whatnot, saying that the game is amazing. I love it, but it's not for everyone. And that is something that people already said for KCD1, and now they're repeating it for KCD2. But I think we kind of managed to have this, let's say, this moment of progress, like Crusader Kings 2 to Crusader Kings 3, for instance. Crusader Kings 2 is a very like deep RPG, like grand strategy strategy game, a grand strategy game, very complicated, a lot of numbers and whatnot. Then they released CK Crusader Kings 3 and tried to make it generally more accessible to the people, like make it less complicated and more like straightforward. And I think we tried the same, while not neglecting, of course, the roots of the game. So KCD is still a very story-driven RPG first and foremost. We are trying to deliver a story that is cool, captivating, and has a lot of dialogue and whatnot. And it's just, as it can make you laugh out loud, but also like put you in tears if you're ready for it. So this was the first premise, but you're right that generally I think it's a game where you have to get ready for it, in a way that you have to like sit down, take your snacks and drinks and whatnot, and delve into that world. And it's less a fast food, quick in, quick out game, more of a 5-course gourmet meal where you have to sit down, take your time, and really digest everything slowly. We tried. We are making the game that we think is cool, and this KCD2 is now finally the product or the vision we had in 2014 when we were going on Kickstarter with this idea of this medieval authentic world. Nothing bad about KCD1, but it took us a game and 7 years or whatnot to figure out what we want to do and what the community actually likes, and find the right balance. So we were, of course, heavily looking on the feedback of the first game. Of course, we are not blind, looking at the mods, what people were downloading, what they were creating, what they liked and did not like, and so on. Plus, filled in the stuff we always wanted, like having a huge city and whatnot. And in the end, we got this like monster of an RPG that turned out exactly as we wanted in the first place, and that is important. And luckily, it hit the mark.
What were the most popular mods, out of curiosity?
Well, first, there's this reticle, I think is the name, this yellow dot in the middle all the time at KCD1. So people were modding that away because they felt it's annoying. Then unlimited saves, then unlimited carry wage. And I think these were the top 3 as far as I know. Now, with the point, okay, that's an easy setting thing. We just added a new setting. You can put it away if you don't like it. Easy. The carry weight, that's a tricky thing. It's still an open world game and an RPG, so we don't want to. Yeah, we want to go halfway your way if you don't like it. So Henry can now carry whatever he wants, and as much as he wants, he can carry like 400 pounds if you want to. However, he's super slow down. You can't do the fast travel. You can't hop on a horse. You can't sprint. However, we gamified it a little bit. So if you are that over encumbered, then you are training your strength skill. So again, there's like these little nuances and gameplay. Okay, we are adjusting it a little bit, but have a bit of gameplay in it. And the unlimited save thing, that is something where we said, you know what, it's still by design. We want you to have this minimum investment of like taking this potion so that you can save your game. At least you think twice about your decisions and what way you go and so on. I know it's a very infamous feature of the game, but at least in the second installment, we tried now to have it more accessible. So you get more of them. You get the game itself autosaves more often. And you can brew them from the get-go, from the beginning of the game. So again, try to live with it, but okay, we go halfway your way and try to help you.
It sure makes it harder for me to cheat at dice. So that's been my main money-making scheme early on in the game, and I'm doing okay. Like I have a 100, what is it, Groschen?
Yeah. You need to be careful because everyone is kind of cheating at dice. But the cool thing is, so we tried really, one of the huge focuses really was to make the world reactive to what you do and kind of like believable and living. So there's this very early on when you go the blacksmith route, you're ending up in this village in the north, right? It's called, what is it? I think north of Jeliov. I think it's Jeliov. And there's a pub right. with a grandma there, and she's absolutely cheating all the time in dice. She has all the loaded dice and whatnot. But the cool thing about the game is that if you lose to her, she will have your money in her pocket, and if you follow her and then rob her blind in the evening, you can get your money back, her money, and the loaded dice she's having with her. So the next day when you meet her in the pub, she won't have the loaded dice anymore, and she doesn't have the money to actually go gamble high. So again, we tried really hard to make this like a reactive thing, and that you can use the systems, and it should almost feel like a sandbox in a way.
I'm going to rob her, but leave her just enough money so we can play again, and then destroy her with her own loaded dice.
So I'm playing with my partner, and she figured out that way by herself that you can rob her blind, and she now has this money-making scheme by milking her every week or so in games. So every week she's coming back to town and then following her around, take all her money, and at night, and then okay, free money scheme.
That's great. Besides the slow pacing and everything, why do you think Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 or even the original Kingdom Come Deliverance is really standing out from other games that are on the market. There's not really, I can't even think of anything to compare it to off the top of my head.
I think the closest would be probably Red Dead Redemption 2. At least that one is something where we took a lot of inspiration from for the second game. Yeah, where it stands out, I think it really depends on how you look at it. Generally, the slower pace and the bigger focus on player choices and reactions is something that is not that common in video games anymore. I mean, Red Dead Redemption does it great, but I think we just try to make the game we think is cool and that makes fun and that is like intriguing and that wherever you go and wherever you look and whatever you do will open up some cool, interesting new story. We never wanted to have any filler quests or like stretch the game into the length. What we tried to make it just as broad as possible. So when you go somewhere, you can have those different ways how to solve the quest and come up with your own ideas. We respect player intelligence quite a lot. By that I mean that we demand from the player to think about the quests. Very often you barely have any guidance or like GPS signals telling you go there, push A and do something, but we give you the bare necessary information. You, have the player, have then the chance to come up with your own solutions, which is often very great because it gives you this proud moment of achieving something when you get to the end, or when you, for instance, very early in the game, without saying too many spoilers, there's a situation where you go on a wedding. But if you spend the time beforehand and go around the map and avoid the main quest and just do side quests everywhere around the map, you meet those people in the wedding and they will say, "Hey, Henry, how the heck did you get here? And thank you for doing this and that." And everything comes together again and it clicks. And you as a player then have this great moment of, "Oh, I know this dude." And it's like meeting your old friends kind of situation. So I don't know if that is something that makes us different to other games. Maybe it's the approach of how we see quests and how we want to do that, or how we want to craft a world, making it believable, making it again respecting players' decisions and intelligence. But yeah, as I said, we think it's cool, so that's why we're making it.
Yeah, I really like RPGs that surprise you with little details, like the interaction between NPCs. It's not as stiff, right? It's more, it feels like you're living in the world as opposed to experiencing it, and that's an important distinction with a good RPG.
Every designer, so as the quests are unique, every designer in the studio and the designers at War Studios are all narrative designers, so they're writing their quests and putting the characters in and coming up with the different options and conclusions. And so they're in a way competing with each other, who writes the coolest quest or the most funniest thing, which is cool because it raises the quality of them. But they also then are following that quest until finishing and until it actually arrives in the game. What I mean by that is that they stay the owners of these quests. They have to work with the scripters and the concept department and all the other departments to put together everything as the way intended. Then QA is testing it. It then comes back to design if it's fun or interesting or whatnot. What I'm trying to say with that is that this makes the quality of the quest probably better because it's being followed the entire time until it finally arrives in the game. So maybe that's one of the reasons why we can proudly say that all of the quests are unique, and even the seemingly small side quest that you meet somewhere because there's a dude sitting on a tree or whatever and wants to jump down, and all of a sudden you have this 1 hour huge side quest with all the different options and whatnot, just adds to the immersion. And the immersion is, I think, the biggest value of the game, or the biggest thing we try to achieve, that you actually believe that the things around you, that the world is living, and that they really are believable. That is what we tried. But of course, as your first question, or one of the first questions implied, that is a bit different to other games, as you as a player, as it requires you to really delve into that game and get prepare enough time so that you can actually allow the open world to suck you in. And that is definitely you as a player, you as a regular RPG player, probably have to change your mindset a tiny little bit to be able to, yeah, not understand but appreciate what we are trying to do here, I think.
No, I think I totally get where you're coming from. When you said Red Dead Redemption 2, I had sort of the same inclination with that game. It's the type of game where when you're playing it, there's a lot of horse rides across the
Mm.
countryside, and you just kind of
Mm-hmm.
need to buckle up and either get with the program and enjoy the pacing that Rockstar put together
Mm-hmm.
for that game, or it wasn't for you. And I remember when it came out, a lot of people were like, "Oh man, it like the pacing's a little slow for me," and it went on to become one of these phenomenons where I still see clips today of people doing and finding crazy things in
Yes.
Red Dead Redemption 2.
Mm.
It was a really a special game, and I think you have a little bit of that specialness too in Kingdom Come
Thank you.
Deliverance too.
Thank you. So just recently, I saw someone trying to directly compare KCD2 to Red Dead Redemption. Still, of course, Red Dead Redemption is a one of a kind game that again changed the industry a little bit, or at least changed the way how many developers understood video games. And it's a great thing that this happens sometimes, and just again pushes the bar higher, and everyone wants to achieve that. Um, and yeah, we for the second game, we definitely looked a lot on Red Dead Redemption, a bit of Elden Ring. It helps that most of the people, the designers and in the team, are actually geeks and gamers and ridiculously addicted to video games, which makes them play everything, and all the good ideas then come together. And it's not like we are stealing stuff from other studios. That's not what happens. But you do look what how Rockstar, for instance, solves its problems in the open world, and how they do this and that, and if that is somehow applicable to your game and so on. So I think it's good that generally every successful game helps all the following up games, because they will again try to come up with new ideas to problems they might have. So that's quite cool.
One thing I don't think you stole from any recent game that comes to mind is optimization, because Kingdom Come
Oh yeah.
Deliverance 2 is very well optimized. I've seen a lot of praise for it, and I think a lot of games they either are too heavy on the CPU or they're relying on Unreal too much. How much effort did you put into making sure Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 was playing well on all platforms? Because it's been praised.
Extreme, yeah, really extreme effort. Thank you for saying that. And I must say, it was also a bit of a lucky call at the end. So we planned for the longest time to release around November last in 2024, October, November, somewhere there. That was the first idea when we announced the game is going that KCD2 exists. And as I said, October, November was the first idea. And then we figured, hey, when we look back on KCD1, so there's two philosophies maybe how you can tackle maybe game development in general, maybe just sequels, depends on how you look at it. But either you put as many features as possible in the game, and that is then some kind of indicator for, wow, that's a great game because it has X amount of features. Or you look on the other side and say, hey, maybe we put in less features, but make sure that the ones that are inside, that they just work and click, and that they are understandable, and they don't make you angry as a player, that that the experience you have is key, right? That everything feels great and plays great. Now in KCD1, we got a huge amount of feedback of different kinds. We had tens, we had fives, we had people loving the game, we had people hating the game. The combat system was the best combat system there ever was, and the worst combat system it ever was. So it was really hard to sometimes figure out what's the common ground. And the only common ground we found is that everyone was annoyed by the technical state on the release of the KCD1. That is what everyone agreed on. So we said, okay, listen, so if we do KCD2 now, the original idea was, hey, we do KCD1 plus 25% in everything, a bit bigger map, a bit more features, a bit more characters and whatnot. But we will have to put much more effort in the second philosophy, in the let's make this smooth and great, because while we had maybe the puppy bonus in KCD1 with being a Kickstarter project, now we had a successful game and we didn't want to repeat the same mistakes. Well, planning is something we still have to really get better in, because instead of KCD1 plus 25%, we got pretty much double the size and everything. So it absolutely exploded everywhere. There's so much more characters and the huge medieval city and 2 maps and whatnot. So that part we didn't nail yet. We are still punks as we were in KCD1, but a bit more organized punks maybe. But what we definitely made sure was that this time around, at some point, we have to just say stop, and now we have to polish the stuff we have in there. So of course we had ideas of Bard mini games and medieval tournaments and stuff like that, like grandeur things. But we tried really hard to get it right. And now, why I was mentioning that release in October, November, we were ready for release, honestly, right? We could have done it, but we put our heads together and we're thinking like, listen, if we just put a tiny little bit more time into it, we are onto something. And this onto something was that our programmers really last second realized that there's a way how we can get 60 frames on consoles. And that is, I can tell you, if we would have released in November, October, this would absolutely not be the case. So this movement of 2 months, or yeah, more or less 2 months, maybe 3, this created this eureka moment in the programming department, that all of a sudden we were able to have the different modes and then could offer 60 frames and on consoles. And funny enough, those optimizations that went into the consoles, in even the Xbox Series S and X and PlayStation 5 and whatnot, they also, of course, those, because we are all developing all those platforms ourselves, PC as well, those optimizations we had to do on the weaker consoles then also benefited the bigger ones and the PC. So everything we did there in this eureka moment led to this, plus all the scratching of features we just didn't put into the game, led to the fact that we now have a game that on release on PC, if you have a good machine, easily runs 120 frames, which is really unseen. And if you again think of KCD1, I'm extremely proud that if you check Metacritics, that that the reviews are the same more or less on no matter what platform you look at. So all of them have 87 or 88. So again, kudos to the programming team, but this is definitely something where we said this must be right, and I think that's half the trick why the game is so successful right now.
Yeah, I gotta admit, I fired it up and there were no issues, there were no crashes. It was just working, and it's surprising to me that my reaction was like, "Wait, nothing's breaking. It's just running really well. I didn't really change any. I didn't have to mess with the settings or anything." And I hope more people put a focus on that, honestly, because it was really appreciated that y'all did that.
That's it's really funny, because it's like, I thought the same. It's like, oh wow, everything works so great, and then I was thinking like, but when I'm buying a new car, I expect it to run good and not fall apart while I like sit there, and then I wait for a month until they fix it. So I said, okay, we have to, of course. Hey, it's a huge open world game, right? It has if you play through the main quest only or so, you have, I don't know, 70 hours or so, right? And you can easily stretch it to 120. And of course, there's bugs everywhere and funny glitches and I don't know, blinking lights and whatnot. But at least what we wanted to make sure is that there's no bug in there that kind of stops you from progressing, or that makes you angry, or that if maybe one way or one solution is not working, then there's always a workaround and something like that. And luckily we managed that, but still, of course, we are working on patches and fixes. There was one coming yesterday, I think, or today. There's one very big one coming in March, version 1.2. So that one will contain almost 5 months or a bit less maybe of work and fixes and patches and whatnot. So this will be big. And yeah, I think, as I said earlier, this was half the success. Of course, great game, but it also ran smooth. So and yeah, so good for us that we can focus on DLCs now rather than fixing the game.
I watched the IGN review, 9 out of 10. Spoiler warning. They really like the game. I'm curious. They mentioned encountering one thing. You speaking about quest progression, where they went into a town, they murdered everybody, but then there was a quest in that town. Is that intentional, or is that just like, well, yeah, I mean, you killed everybody there, so it's going to be hard to progress that story mission.
I know exactly what you're talking about, and this can happen. This is when open world collides with story-driven RPG, and I, for myself, also I'm not the biggest fan of it, but at some point you just have to do those compromises because, we want you to be able to do whatever you want, kill that, like attack that camp if you want. If you go through it, fine. If you want to have that challenge, that's good. But we are still the main story. We don't want you to break the main storyline completely, right? So we want to tell this one story that you can only follow when you go through the main quest line. So some of these things just need to be, let's call it cheated maybe. You kill them all, but then through the quest wants you to go there and do something. But I think generally that's a very rare thing. It only happens when we are not able to find a better solution than that, in all honesty. So it happens, but I think that's a general problem when you have open world versus story driven stuff. But as I said, it's rare because it's only when it comes to those main plot lines. When all the side quests, you can completely ruin them or do them early or come up with your own solutions and whatnot. So yeah.
I kind of understand that one, honestly. It's kind of like on the player a little bit, but yeah, I understand. One of the things I want to talk about sound. So there's two aspects to sound that I really appreciated. First, the score really, really makes it feel like you're watching. You've compared it to Monty Python, the intro to Monty Python, but it really, really stands out. What was it like landing on the score and the soundtrack, and how did you? Like, how much can just take me through the process? I'd be curious because it's really good. Like it really gets you invested very early on.
Yes. So Jan Walter is the composer of the score, and he was there already for Kingdom Come Deliverance 1. He has a sidekick, Adam Sporker, who's also his cousin, so it's a family business in a way. So those two gentlemen are responsible for the music, but there's even more than that. There's also the general sound design, because of course, yes, the music is really bombastic. It's a more Williams kind of type of music.
Yeah.
So that was something the creative director Daniel Vabra wanted from the get-go, that KCD1 goes that way. We were trying a lot of stuff there, or the composers were trying a lot of stuff there. For them, it was, as far as I know, also the first video game score that they did. He's a regular classical musician and composer, and dirigent, is that the right word in English? And conductor.
Yeah.
And he did a very good score, I think, for KCD1. I strongly believe it was a bit overlooked in especially in the United States when we are thinking of awards show or whatnot. But KCD1 generally was this awkward game from Europe that's janky, somewhat magical but without magic. And now with KCD2, I hope that we again have our own Crusader Kings 2 to 3 moment where the game's just more accessible and opens up itself for a grander audience without neglecting its roots. But Jan Walter used some themes of the first game, some of them, so that when you hear them as a player who has played the first game, you will immediately get this warm "I'm back home" moment, which is great. I think the fans especially love that when in the beginning, when you and your buddy Hans Cape and you're riding towards Trotsky Castle, which is here and behind me slightly, and you hear parts of the theme of the first game, but then it transitions to something new and bombastic, and this is one thing. But on the other thing, it's also important to respect silence and quietness. That you don't have these huge beats all of the time, but when you are going through a forest or something, it might as well happen that there's no music at all, but you don't realize it as a gamer. And that is, I think, a strong part of the game, that even if when the music plays, you of course realize it because it's big and whatnot. But if it stops and only the sound design jumps in, like the birds chirping or the cows mooing in the background or something, and you don't even realize that the soundtrack is gone, but this is now just only the like backdrop stuff. That is, I think, also again adds to this whole immersion of and respecting the location where you are right now. So they tried really hard to give every single aspect a distinguished sound. So the cities sound different than the villages. Combat is active and whatnot. But when you step to into quieter fields or forests or stuff like that, the music goes down or goes into the background, and then the world itself kind of plays its own tunes. And again, it should suck you into that world. Jan was coming, of course, he's not sitting directly in the studio. He does his stuff at home most of the time, where he has his studio, of course. Mm-hmm. But he was there with all the cutscenes. So whenever there was the discussion of the cutscene department, hey, we are doing this or that, he was actively, of course, sitting with them with us in the offices, in the kickoffs and so, because he needed to understand the mood and why what the player is doing there, what the situation is, what follows up, and so on, so that he understood exactly where we are going. All these sounds, all the cutscene sounds, which there's a huge ton of them. I don't know exactly, like 5 hours, I think, of score, but the total score is like 10 hours or so. We are actually trying to get a world record here as well with the longest soundtrack. But these are all also recorded here in Prague in a huge concert hall with a symphonic orchestra. He said that he has over 100 musicians and vocalists there. So there was, again, made in an extremely high quality and like technique wise, I mean. And this again also adds to the feeling when you hear it. You even if you don't know that it was recorded by real instruments with a symphonic orchestra and whatnot, you kind of feel that it's bigger than the usual sound. And again, this just helps with the immersion, especially in those super tired moments, sad moments, not tired moments, in those super sad moments where you see something happening on screen, but the music then is the one that really pushes that tear out of your eyes.
A good sound design is really, really subtle, and it definitely hit that aspect of it. Like subtle when it needs to be subtle, the ambience kicking in, like you mentioned, or just hitting that exact note to pull on your heartstrings a little bit more.
Yes.
So they did a really, really excellent job. You noticed it from the get-go too. The other aspect to sound design, I would consider voice acting part of that mix. So, you've done a lot of interesting things with the voice acting. I see the voice actor tweeting all the time about how he's playing the game and things like that. So that's really, really fun to see. Beyond that, you actually hired people with really unique dialects speaking in like languages from the time period. Was that a little bit of a risk for you? Like, how did the studio feel about making that decision creatively?
That was, when we started with the Kickstarter, that was one of the very early questions in 2014, maybe even earlier, where people were actually asking us what kind of language they will be hearing when they will be playing the game. And many asked for archaic English or English with a Czech accent, where we said, okay, the Czech accent thing, that's not cool because it sounds just off, and then everyone would sound like this Bond villain kind of from Russia or something like this. So we said, okay, that is more slapsticky. This would actually not help the game, we think. Then we were thinking, hey, the like medieval English or whatever, anything that you as a player would not understand is just wrong, because if you have to decipher what the people are saying there, it just again does not help. It's fun maybe when you play it for 30 minutes or so, but then when you actually want to play the game, you would most likely turn it off anyway, because you want to understand what's going on, obviously. So the English accents was something where we thought, okay, this is how we can mimic that. The game or the where it takes place in the Holy Roman Empire was actually a relatively diverse place, in the sense that many European nations were living or staying or doing something in Bohemia in that time. Think of it a little bit like the gold rush in the United States. So we had Bohemia with Nahora, where there was the silver rush in a way. So they was trying to open up their businesses there, which was very possible by that time already. That was also the time when nobility kind of started to lose power, because entrepreneurs could now open up regular businesses in their city, and they were wealthy, didn't have the status, but the people with the status didn't have the money. So the power balance was changing a little bit. And when we were thinking about the accents, we thought, hey, so we will go British, because that sounds medieval. It's just a fact. But to kind of show different nationalities or different people from different regions, we will go through different dialects. Some of them are very archaic and weird, which are usually then connected to weird characters or weird people in the game. But overall, we tried to have just a colorful mix of different voices and accents that again show a little bit that there were that it was not a very that it was a place of mixed nationalities, and that is at the end quite interesting. We tried that didn't work always with the German accent. So in Kutna we have a big amount of German people living there. So we had like English with German accents. It works sometimes. It's quite funny. But when we were working, for instance, with the nomadic people or like something like that, then we tried really hard to get voice actors from like these nationalities or cultures, so to make at least sure that the right voice actors are there for the right people.
That makes sense. Do you think you'll bring him back for Kingdom Come Deliverance 3?
So Daniel Vavra said many years ago that he hates to do the same project over and over again, and that many studios are kind of forced, when they have a hit, that they're kind of forced to do always the same game, and then in like a death circle in a way. I think so far we are still in a learning phase. You need to understand that KCD1, when I started in 2014, we were like 30 people or so. And of those 30 people, maybe 10 ever released the game. The game was then released by 110. So you can see like there were 15 pros, let's say, and almost 100 newcomers. Now we have the same situation or a similar situation. So the many, maybe 80%, maybe more of the people who released KCD1 moved to KCD2. But the studio grew to 250 people or so. So again, we have a situation where only half of the studio ever worked on a video game before. The other guys, for the vast majority of Warhorse, it's the first project ever. So I can't tell you if there will be a KCD3. I can tell you that we are really good in RPGs, I think, and that is something where we see ourselves. But I can also tell you that many people would generally try to do something else as well. But we will see when and how and if. But we as a studio want to grow further. Luckily, knocking on wood here, luckily the game, well, that's not lucky. The game industry was in, or has its problems, of course, in the recent years. We were luckily not touched by that, so it worked well for us. We were able to hire more people actually, but you need to keep the crew entertained, right? So now with finishing KCD2 or finished KCD2 now with the DLCs and everything, we need to come up with ideas how to give 250 plus. We want, as I said, want to grow 300, maybe how to get 300 people thing to work on. So we would eventually think of in the future work on several projects at once, not only be a one-trick pony. So let's see.
Hypothetically, if you were to do something vastly different than Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, what would your personal pick be? Like, what would it be? A different time period? Would you go into the future? Would you go into space? Like, what would your personal pick be?
Me personally, as Toby, I would probably choose other time periods and other parts of history just out of curiosity. However, then we get to a little bit of a problem. I think the reason why KCD is so authentic and why we can claim that is that we are the majority of the studio is of Czech heritage, or at least we are all sitting here in Prague, and we are talking of a region and a part of history that happened like 100 miles or maybe less, 50 miles south of Prague. So we can pack our stuff, go sit in the car, go there and check out the real city of Kutná Hora, talk to the historians, look at the city, look at everything. This gets way more complicated if you do something from, I don't know, ancient Greece or whatever. Then all of a sudden you can't just like write there. So I don't know if that does have an impact on the quality of the game. I can't tell you right now. I simply don't know, but I would love to visit other, maybe even ancient Rome or something like that, seeing ancient Rome or something about that, maybe, I don't know. But then there's other studios who did that already, so no need to repeat what others did.
It's funny you say that. I was just thinking about the Roman Empire. You know,
everyone thinks of the Roman Empire at least once a day, right?
Right? Yeah, that's the thing. There's been a little bit of talk about budget for Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, and it sounds like your budget was really not huge. Like it wasn't $300 million or anything too crazy. Can you tell me a little bit more about how you managed to keep costs under control?
Being effective. Nah, you know, when in KCD1 we had almost non-existent budget. So of course we had the Kickstarter, and then we had this investor who was jumping in, and at some point the publisher jumped us in as well and helped us publishing the game. But the marketing budget was close to zero. So the whole marketing was that I got a laptop and a backpack and airplane tickets, and then I was flying around the world with a backpack and trying to show the game to the IGNs of the world. And in KCD2 now, with the first game being successful, not that much has changed. We are still on a tight budget, but it's just we are, I think, generally very effective in what we are doing. First of all, producing a game in the Czech Republic. I know this sounds maybe not nice, but it's just cheaper than in the West generally. Workforce is just cheaper here, while the living standards is still quite high. So that's a fact, and we do not. We did all our stuff by ourselves. We did not only a few things we outsourced, and by outsourcing it's really just polishing of cutscenes or something like that. So it's not like someone else did someone. We don't have a car park for our people. We don't have crazy advisors and companies, agencies that are helping us with ticking boxes, which is something we absolutely do not want to do anyway. So I don't know. Being effective, I guess. That is, and of course, it helps a lot to have now PlayOn as a publisher who believed us as well. And we had to postpone the game several times, or the announcement at least. Again, it took us 6 years almost. We shifted the studio in 2019 to go in full force ahead for KCD2, but we were all thinking it will release sooner, and again also with a smaller budget. But of course, if you have to pay people and licenses and PCs and offices and whatnot, it stretches. But yeah, I can't tell you what the magic solution there is. It's just not spending money for weird stuff.
That makes sense. Yeah, totally. I actually had a question from a patron here. I was just bringing up, but yeah, I am impressed with the rumored budgets? You can't give me any indication, I imagine, but if you could.
Oh, dude, I mean, it's that budget is always a thing where it depends on how you look at the number, but I can absolutely tell you that what's floating around the internet is not completely wrong. So it's a low, it's not low, but it's a double-digit number, which is already different to that double-digit million number. I mean, that is already different to most of the Western products. But what was important, or what is the key thing to take away, I think, is important for us as a studio, why we were even be able to tell our publisher, hey, listen, we need a little bit more time. Can we get that? Is that that KCD1 pretty much made all the money we needed for the production of KCD2. So that was very important. We didn't have the pressure, at least not from that perspective. So no one was there like with a calculator showing all the time. So that was good. Plus KCD1 is kind of became an evergreen. So whenever there's a sale anywhere, people are like, I just buy it to have it in the library, which is good. Okay, take it. We don't mind. At the end, we managed to have like 8 million copies sold, which of course you need to take this with a grain of salt, because the game was like, what, $5 or something at the end. But still, it was an income, a much welcomed income. And now KCD2 is also very successful, and is right now already everything we are earning right now, all the copies we are now selling, are already financing future products. So that's good for us as a studio. So we have, this is safe. We have a solid base. We have a great team that is not jumping the ship just because we released the game. So that is good. We have some ideas already what we can do in the future. So that's also good. Plus we are right now financially doing good, so that future productions are looking positive as well. But again, times are changing and inflation and whatnot, so things will inevitably get more expensive, of course. So yeah, this is unfortunately something you can't stop.
Yeah, I got to be honest. I'm shocked to hear that the number that's floating around is even close to the fact that you said two digits instead of 3 already is quite impressive. Eric here, we kind of asked the first question already, talking about like how you differentiate in open world design. He was curious to ask, I am constantly blown away by the details in the environment, even in as simple as details in the road. They all have unique features. How did the team craft such large-scale detailed map, engine miracle, custom tools, army of world designers? Can you talk about the little details in the world? Of course.
So the maps and the world is relatively easy because they were taken from real-life locations. So and that's maybe because I'm very often asked as well if it's a handicap that we are working on an authentic or realistic or whatnot game. And I don't see this as a handicap. It's just, you just have to approach it differently when you're crafting the world. Usually when you have let's say any fantasy game, you can craft a story and then you build the world that you need for that story. We had it a little bit pretty much the other way around. We had the world first, so we know, hey, this is how Gutenberg looked like in the Middle Ages. These are the villages that were around, and this is the story you want to tell. So we have to combine them somehow. And one of the key ingredients was that we, as I said earlier, that we could visit those places. Some of them are still existing, so we can talk to the people taking care of it, museums, universities. The Middle Ages generally are a huge topic here in Czech Republic, so there's tons of research we can do here, and historians we can consult and so on. But I mentioned earlier the KCD1 plus 25% and how this didn't work out at all. And especially the designers, our narrative designers, they weren't absolutely off rails when it came to writing dialogues and the different options. And I told you earlier that everyone tried to make his quest the best quest there is in the game. So there's like all these different crazy options you can do. And some of them haven't even been found out by the players yet. So that's cool that there's still stuff that is being discovered. But they of course took a lot of feedback and trial and error from the first game, and then tried to just make it more grandeur with more different opportunities to go through in the game. So I hope that answers the question. It's just designers of Rails, where at some point the executive producer Martin Klima, also founder of the studio, had said, enough, we are already having problems with recording the voice lines, because they always come with like, hey, and if we just add this one line, this will make the game 1,000 times better. But this means like getting the actors again to the voice booth and everything. Is just that no, we have to ship the game, and as I said in the beginning, make sure that the stuff that is in there feels good, plays great, and we don't need the extra stuff there. So all the things that were scratched made sure that the game runs as it runs right now.
You just teased a little bit that there's some stuff players haven't found. Can you give us a hint as to where we should be looking on the map, or what it could entail?
As I said, the studio is full of geeks playing all the games of the world, so Red Dead Redemption and Baldur's Gate 3, especially Baldur's Gate when it comes to the different problem-solving techniques. That is something where for instance, I found out today I knew it, but I saw it on YouTube that someone found out that there's a quest where Hans Capen is afraid to go through a narrow passageway, and you have to figure out how to make him do that. But you can just knock him out and drag him through that thing in a little like black screen. You dragged him through that hole, and he's like, oh, how did that happen? And this is, for instance, some of those like secret stuff that players took them very long to find out that there's an option like that. I don't really want to tease you too much there, but there's more of those funny moments or creative problem-solving methods in the game. So just look at the situations and try to get crazy sometimes. Try to think like, what would I do? Or what if I do this or that? What if I attack this person, kill this guy, or do it completely different, or skip some time and see what happens when time passes by, or someone tells you, hey, we have to go there right now, and you just don't do it. See how that situation then plays out when the knights are then coming back saying, hey, where the heck have you been, Henry, and so on. So we tried really hard again that your input into the game triggers some kind of sometimes interesting feedback or answer.
I really like the fast travel mechanic. Speaking of that, I like how you're like, oh, I want to go to this town, and then you get a little dialogue, and it actually asks you, well, what do you want to do? Do you want to try and flee? It reminds me of like the games I used to play when I was in high school, and you would have sort of these text-based adventures. How did you land on that as adding that to fast travel? Because I do think it adds like sort of a fun element. I don't think I've ever passed down one of those encounters, because I'm always curious, what's going on? Like what's going to happen?
I'm also trying to convince my girlfriend to stop. If she's playing, I'm not allowed to touch the controller. So my job is just watching. I'm not even allowed to backseat there. So I just have to sit quiet and watch. But I try to tell her, if you're doing the fast travel, just stop sometimes, because there's super interesting encounters you can find. The Riddler kind of guy who's always coming with cool riddles and so on. But you are right, these are inspirations from older times, especially Daniel Vavra likes the old school RPGs that are often, of course, text-based and everything. Hey, do this, go left, look left, look right. We have the three main people at the studio. Hopefully I'm not like making someone angry, but the three main people are Daniel Vavra, who is
I was hoping you wouldn't say Daniel, so he would see this and get mad at you.
Yes, maybe.
Everybody but Daniel.
But I even started with him, so Daniel. Yeah. But now the three big people are Daniel Vavra, who is known for games like Mafia, so very story-driven things. Then we have Martin Klima, who's also founder of the studio. He's for once, he's a revolutionary, but he's also someone who is responsible for the Czech version of Dungeons and Dragons, so a tabletop legend here in Czech Republic, and he has this like tabletop mindset. And the third one is Viktor Botsan, who's probably the biggest fan of Elden Ring and Dark Souls and these kind of games. And he did in the past Operation Flashpoint, if you guys remember that one, which was like a super hyper realistic army shooting kind of game. No, well, and those three people met and they put together all of their wisdom and then spit out KCD1 and KCD2. And I think you can really see all those three elements a lot in the game. So you have the tabletop mastery from Martin, you have the realism, everything must be super hyper realistic from Victor Botzan, but also he understood that super hyper realistic is not always fun, so we have to dial down a little bit. And Daniel, who's pushing a super strong cinematic bombastic narrative story. So I think those three are having their handwriting there.
Speaking of some of the things that you'll encounter in the game, are there any, were you really happy to get any specific historical figures or new characters into Kingdom Come Deliverance 2?
So it's a spoiler, but the game is already out for 2 weeks. So I think Jan Žižka, especially for Czech Republic, is Jan Žižka a very important character. He's someone that is everyone knows him here, and he's something like a national hero in a sense. So he was this rebel leader in a way who fought against the establishment and was fighting and fending off crusades and whatnot. So he was a big important person here. So he's definitely someone who especially for the Czech people who is a very important character. And another spoiler, he's known that he lost his eyes in combat. First one, so he's in most movies or pictures, he has this eye patch, and then later he even lost the second one. Well, in KCD2, he has both eyes. At the end of the game, he doesn't. So
okay,
because it's not so really historically. There's some wonky ideas how that happened, how he probably somewhere in combat, of course. So we took the creative freedom to, have it in the game, so you can figure out yourself how Žižka lost his eye. But I think generally, in KCD1, Henry was mostly dealing with some local bandits and really like minor nobility and whatnot. And in KCD2 now, he's being dragged into the big stages. He will meet kings, he will meet armies, he will meet this high society in a way. So we are happy that we were able to like show this bigger stage in a way. You are still not changing history, but you can at least be there at the moment of great history and see it with your own eyes. But the most important part, again, I think, despite this, is that you as a player now are part of that group of rebels. Think of it a bit like Inglourious Bastards, maybe, all of them kind of weird, but together fighting for what they perceive is the greater good. And those characters in there are all, most of them are also based on real characters. Even Dry Devil, for instance, is kind of robber knight who apparently lived.
Oh, that's cool. I'm like I said, I'm earlier on. I'm really excited to experience more of it when I'm not chasing the kids or whatever, working on all the millions.
Okay, then forget everything I said. No. You are this fine. Peasant boy, and
honestly, that makes me more excited to play more and get to experience that and meet that character and see what that's all about. Yeah. So often online, I think even I'm guilty of it. We get caught up in the negativity and then just arguing or whatever on X. So I wanted to change it a little bit for this question. I wanted to ask you, actually, what's something that the team has seen that has been really humbling or just really special in terms of seeing players get their hands on the game and the reaction to it? What's a positive thing that the team was really touched by?
You're right. There's unfortunately a lot of negative stuff floating around, but all of us, or the entire team, is of course active on the Reddits. Some lurking in the shadows, some actively writing stuff on X and Facebook and whatnot, and Reddit and so on. I think what was a really touching moment lately, and we immediately as a company also jumped on that because we said, hey, this is something we have to support. On Reddit, there was a dude talking about the fact, I think it was even picked up by media, but this was definitely not our intention. It just happened because someone saw it. But some dude on Reddit picked up, he was saying that he had a really hard time back in the days and that someone gave him a game and he was able to lose himself in there and kind of forget about negativity of his life and was able to recover from that, and that he wants to give back and wants to gift KCD2 that he perceived as a great, again, way how to forget the cruelty of life a little bit, at least for a while, and gift it to players in need or people who can't afford it or something like that. And what we as a team liked a lot is, first of all, this initiative in itself, but also that the commentaries seemed all very supporting, liking, understanding that there were people throwing in keys as well to that person to be able to give it to more people. We as a studio also threw in a few keys and to support it and so on. And that was lately, I think, one of the biggest moment that we saw on Reddit. But generally, you could transfer this to the majority of the community. I think we are really lucky, or can be very lucky, because this is unfortunately not normal anymore in the video game industry, that we have a really welcoming and friendly community that is trying to help each other, geeking around about historical facts. And it's just very wholesome when they start to discover some coat of arms and trying to explain this to the others, or when someone has a problem that usually everyone is very eager to help them and so on. So that's, again, we can be very lucky to have a community that actually appreciates the product and wants it to succeed and wants it to spread it. And especially the Czech community, because I know this sounds kind of funny, quoting the Anchorman, we are kind of a big deal in Czech Republic. And by that, I mean that the identification with the product is extremely high. So when KCD, even before the release of KCD, we were almost daily in the evening news. Imagine the BBC would talk about the new British game releasing, or some American TV about American game. This rarely happens, only with the super huge games. Here, pretty much the local, the most successful football team reached out to us. IKEA reached out to us. Hornbach, which is another Home Depot store here. They all reached out and they wanted to be part of KCD2 and supporting us and saying, "Hey, yeah, all cool. We are supporting you." And that is very interesting, that this video game, which is just a video game, if you look at it, becomes something like a cultural export. Because very rarely, unless you in the United States are different, because you have, your movies are American and in English speaking, and your music is automatically international. But in all other countries, or most of the other countries, this is never the case. So national movies or music only rarely is able to cross borders. So you never heard of Czech music, I guess, or only of some meme music maybe. But video games automatically, no matter where they come from, if it's from deep down India, America, UK, Italy, wherever, it really doesn't matter. They're usually automatically international. So when a game like here from the Czech Republic becomes an international hit, it becomes, in a way, national pride. So the Czech community reached out to all those American creators, like, "Oh, hey, and please, if you come to the Czech Republic, we will show you around." And this happened. No matter where you look, this happens under every YouTube video, pretty much. In the comments, you see someone trying to invite them to the Czech Republic and come visit us and whatnot. So this is very wholesome, also in general, that KCD somehow, at least here, became more than just a video game.
That's really great to hear. Just the positivity. I can understand why that would be impactful to the team, and it's heartwarming. It's nice to hear a good story.
Yeah.
No, go ahead.
I think the whole country benefits from that as well. It's a bit like, maybe it sounds a little bit arrogant, but I think KCD2 could be for Czech Republic was what The Witcher 3 was for Poland. That it needs one super successful game that will support the entire industry here in the country. So everyone will benefit from the fact that KCD is successful. There will be more eyes on the games here. There will be, maybe inspires schools and politics and whatnot to focus a little bit more on the gaming industry. Maybe it becomes more than just a thing for fat nerds in the basement or something like that. So, that the general, because video games, while they are more popular than they ever have been, they are still not in the super mainstream. So here, hopefully, it will help also smaller developers to like be inspired to create their studios and whatnot. So yeah, it's great that games can do that.
You just kind of made me think of probably my last question for the interview, but do you think the team would ever be interested in making a movie, like an actual movie? Because it seems ripe for that adaptation.
I have a counter question then, because that is something, of course, there was already with KCD1 some Netflix exec or ex-exec or something like that reached out, bought the license, but then COVID happened, so the movie or series or whatever he wanted to do never happened. But of course, KCD generally, I think, would do great as a series or a movie. But my counter question would be then, because people very often don't know what they want. So, and I don't mean this in a bad way, but do the people want a movie or series, doesn't matter at that point, that is 1-to-1 KCD, like really the story of Henry just as a series, or do they want something from that world or that universe? So in that case, a regular medieval movie in a way, right, without magic or stuff. These things are already happening, but I don't think that filming the exact story of KCD would be the best thing. Maybe a spin-off, maybe something that like loosely is based on it, and you meet some characters here and there, but maybe tells the story of someone completely different. So but then again, there's a lot of ideas and wishes, and of course we would love that. And Daniel Vavra always wanted to shoot a movie, but like a children's movie, like a fairy tale movie. But we are just humble developers, so we won't do that, of course, by ourselves. If someone approaches us, hey, let's talk about it. But we have this kind of we have a problem not controlling stuff. So if someone would come and say, hey, let's do this movie thing and trust us, we will do it, this will probably never work with us. We would be heavily involved. We would want to be heavily involved, but then this would slow down other things. So it's a tricky thing. I don't know. I would love it. I would like to have a KCD inspired movie, let's say.
Yeah, to answer your question, I suppose, I don't know why, but the first thing that jumped out in my mind was What We Do in the Shadows, like that sort of tone, because I think the game sort of has that tongue-in-cheekness to it, and I think at least with the way I'm playing, it's a little whimsical. So I think that could be fun, maybe in a movie format, or you could do a bunch of stories within the world also, like you said. So I do think it's definitely, it would be easy to adapt, or there would be a lot of potential with an adaptation would be a better way to phrase it. So yeah, I don't know. I would prefer the game, but I was just sort of curious if it ever crossed anyone's mind.
Of course, there were ideas like that, but I can tell you right now, there's nothing tangible.
Get on the phone, Netflix. I don't know what to say. Yeah. Well, thank you.
Ready.
Thank you so much for making the time to chat with me. It was an absolute pleasure. I can't wait to play more. Any final thoughts that you want to share with fans, or thank you maybe for people enjoying and playing the game?
Well, thank you for giving me the chance to talk. I do talk quite a lot, so I hope it fits in your format. But generally, I would like to thank everyone for giving the game a chance. I think, again, I know I said this several times, but what I am very happy about is that KCD was able to also reach people who, for instance, started the first game, KCD1, got beaten up by the village drunk, and then said, okay, too hard, we'll never play this again. And this unfortunately happened quite a lot. And we talked about this in the beginning, when you do not know what kind of game you are starting, or when you go into the game with false expectations. I think KCD1 helped a lot for the success of KCD2, obviously, because now the people knew what kind of game it is, or what we are trying to achieve with this kind of game, or what our thinking is here. So it made the second game just more understandable to the people, and I'm very proud to see that people of who I know, and again, also in the United States, who I know that did not like the first game because it was too difficult or too whatever, are absolutely enjoying everything about the second game. So I'm happy that we were able to find the right balance, that fans were like, yes, this is our KCD, the same but more, and that people who hated or didn't know about the first game, that they said, oh yeah, that's an interesting RPG to play. So thank you for the support, and thank you for the love, and also thank you for the criticism, honestly, because we do read that a lot. We do take this very seriously. We again, KCD2 looks the way how it looks because of the feedback of KCD1. So feel free to let us know what you think or not think. But let's lose ourselves in Bohemia 1403.
Well, thank you again. I'm really enjoying the game so far. If you want to check it out, it's available everywhere. And
everywhere.
Yeah, go get it. I think the resounding consensus is that the game is quite good. So thank you again, Toby.
Thank you for having me.
If you want to support this channel, you can do so very easily by hitting that subscribe button, hitting that bell, or hitting that like button when content goes live. But a very special shout out to the patron members who support at the highest tier: Christopher Eddy, Inner Machine, Phil Roney, Savage 03, Spingetter 889, and the Scarecrow 121. There are a ton of supporters for this channel. Thank you, everyone. If you want to see some of my other work, be sure to check out my Assassin's Creed Shadows preview, and I'll see you for the next one. Bye for now.